Hello, tonight on Business Life, inflation in Ghana to get worse before it begins to drop. That's the verdict of Associate Professor of Finance at Andrews University, Williams Pripra.
Able to address some policies, comes out with strategies to address the prices of the farm grid versus the urban market. But we should anticipate that inflation will get worse before it starts to come down.
8 banks accounted for 67% of banking industry exposure to the domestic debt exchange program, according to a PwC report. Plus, on the Joy Business Van, we bring you the concluding feature on Simply Green, the startup promoting healthy eating habits founded by autoimmune disease survivor Mariama Abubakari. We have details of these and many others coming your way all in a moment. Please stay. I am Pius Kojubaka. Onto our very first story. Inflation in Ghana will increase further in the coming months. This is the position of Associate Professor of Finance at Andrews University in the USA, Professor Williams Pripra. According to him, if the price dynamics from the farm gate to the market centers are not addressed, inflation will continue to surge. His comment is coming at a time inflation for the month of July went up marginally again to 43.1% from the 42.2% recorded in June this year. According to figures from the Ghana Statistical Service, the rise in food and non-alcoholic beverages pushed the overall inflation up. Speaking at a press briefing, government statistician Professor Samuel Kobnenim said food inflation continued to significantly impact the overall inflation.
From both food and non-food perspective, we see an upward trend with food inflation inching up by 0.8 percentage points between June and July 2023, and non-food inflation increasing by 0.4 percentage points from 33.4 in June 2023 to 33.8 in July 2023. Disaggregating further from a locally produced item and an imported item perspective, we find an 8.2 percentage point difference between inflation for imported items and inflation for locally produced items, with imported items recording an inflation rate of 45.7% and locally produced items 37.5%. Further disaggregating year-on-year inflation from a regional perspective, the Northeast region recorded the highest rate of 64.0% and the Greater Accra region recorded the lowest rate of 31.8%, indicating about a 2-time difference between these two regions, that is the Northeast region and the Greater Accra region. On a month-on-month basis, we saw that month-on-month inflation inched up by 0.4 percentage point, 3.2 for June 2023 and 3.6 for July 2023. Disaggregating this from a food and non-food perspective, food inflation on a month-on-month basis was 3.8% and non-food inflation on a month-on-month basis was 3.4%.
Reacting to the development, Professor Williams Pripra stated that inflation is likely to surge further if the agricultural policies are not strengthened.
So, World Bank issued a report that we should anticipate this, and also in our IMF document, it's already mentioned that the situation will get very worse before it will get better. So all these issues are going to be at play. Noticing that rice is also going to be in shortage because of the Indian policy. India controls about 40% of the rice production and are sent to some part of Europe and Africa. So food prices or inflation is going to go up because of shortages. So as for that belief, I believe that is going to get worse. What I may say is that maybe the rate of increase will not be as it happened in November, December last year. Maybe the rate of increase may be marginal, as we noticed between the previous month, June and July, something like that, but it's not going to be that kind of sharp. So if the government is able to address some policies, comes out with strategies to address the prices of the farm grid versus the urban market, then that kind of issue can be curtailed. But we should anticipate that inflation will get worse before it starts to come down.
All right, so let's now bring in the perspective of players in the agricultural sector with a specific focus on food inflation, which is the main price driver of inflation over the last few months now. Joining us via Zoom is the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana, Anthony Morrison, as well as the Executive Secretary of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, Dr. Charles Nyaba. Pleasure you could join us, gentlemen. Dr. Charles Nyaba, I would like to start off with you first. Inflation went up marginally to 43.1%, we have been told by the Statistical Service. Food inflation still contributed significantly to the overall inflation. What could be the situation from smallholder farmers?
Thank you and good evening. Let me also say good evening to my good brother and friend, Farmer Morrison. Yeah, so on our part, this was expected. You know, if you are sick and then you feel to consult for treatment or without taking any medication when the doctor prescribed medication for you to take, you don't expect to get better. Since we started recording food price inflation hikes, nothing has been done in 2023 for the farmer side. You know that when the previous agri minister resigned and his successor came, the Planting for Food and Jobs program was reviewed. And that's the only government policy that is supporting farmers with input subsidies. That's basically fertilizer and seeds. So when that happened, I think stakeholders were consulted, ourselves were consulted among several others. And we all agreed that the previous project was not properly implemented, leading to supply of poor quality inputs. Prices were skyrocketing. Government itself could not actually pay suppliers like those who are importing fertilizer and seeds. So there was a need at the time to actually review the policy. When the new policy was introduced, the input credit system, which was actually to replace the fertilizer subsidy program, we all welcome it due to the way the fertilizer subsidy program was abused. But since then till now, nothing has been done. We have been waiting to hear from the ministry when this program will be rolled out. We are in the third quarter of the season, but farmers haven't received anything from government. As a result, cost of inputs actually went very high. Many farmers have to reduce their farm sizes. We have majority who produce without applying any fertilizers. When all these factors put together, obviously we should expect cost of production to go up. One other variable which is even more damning is government introducing import duties on agro inputs, which used not to be the case. So you take most of the agro inputs like fertilizer, seeds, veterinary medications, farm machineries, equipments, all of them. There are instances that the cost of the input itself is the same as the cost of the import duties. So today, if you want the charter services, what we used to do 2 years ago, you have to pay 2 times that. So once all these things are coming to the farmer will also have to save the cost to the consumer. Okay?
All right.
We should even be lucky if the farmer is able to produce and save the cost to the consumer. But in most occasions, farmers do not even produce at all. So those are the factors that are contributing to the shortage of food in the market.
I see. Dr. Charles Nyaba, do you think that we may see an end to food inflation going up when the harvest season starts?
In the very short run, we may see some stability. Some farmers from the southern part of the country have started harvesting their maize. Others are also harvesting cassava and other staples. But for rice, when you travel across the various regions, the rice growing areas, I think now that they are applying fertilizers, harvesting will start somewhere October, November. But even with that, I mentioned cost of production. One cost of production goes up, even if supply increase, it's going to be difficult for farmers to sell it at a loss. If they have to sell it at a lower price than the current price, means that they have to sell at a loss. So I don't expect to see any significant reduction in prices within this period.
Great. So let me now bring in Anthony Morrison, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Agribusiness Ghana, to also share his perspective with us on this matter. Anthony, pleasure you could join us on Business Live. Now, how serious is the situation in Niger on the import of vegetables such as onion and tomatoes to Ghana? While at it, you can also have a bite on the inflation rate.
Well, thank you very much, and a very good evening to your cherished viewers. Yes, of course, we know the insecurity in the sub-region and its impact on the food across the sub-region. We trade quite a lot in terms of the ECOWAS food trade policy, while we look at onion moving from Niger to Nigeria, Niger to Ghana, and Ghana also does similar with them with regards to a lot of cereals and grains. Now, if you look at it, the issue here is not primarily on Niger, Mali, and Gambia, Guinea. Nigeria itself, which is the food basket for the sub-region, is facing severe food challenges. So, and they have actually declared a state of emergency with regards to agriculture. So we are actually facing a major challenge, not only in Ghana, but also in about 7 to 12 West African countries. Now, the issue of inflation for me is an issue of self-inflicted situation. Look at the statistics. Over the past 10 years, and I'm sure my very good friend Charles will agree with me, we have not really increased our budgetary allocation for the agriculture sector. Now, it's estimated that our population have increased to about 36 to 36 million in terms of population. Meanwhile, our food importation bill keep increasing. Over the past 5 years, we have doubled from $5 billion to $10 billion. And Ghana is a signatory to the Maputo and the Malabo Declaration of the African Union, NEPAD, CADEP, and we have barely done anything to even increase more than 1.1% of the total budgetary allocation. Food inflation, for me, I want to break it down for our viewers to understand as to what actually constitutes food inflation. And when you do understand, then you know where the causative factors are coming from. First is the increase in food production, which Charles have alluded to. Then the cost of transportation, because the cost of transportation is on the fuel and other elements of taxes, increase in insurance, increase in spare parts, all constitute the transportation because of the involvement of the middle players, which are the aggregators. Then we look at labor. Labor costs have tremendously gone up, okay? Then demand and supply. So we are producing less, but the population needs to feed. We need to eat consistently. So there is an issue over there. Then quantity is what we are buying readily available in terms of availability, accessibility, and affordability. Then issues of climate change. If you realize, we have seen a huge impact of climate change, especially causing post-harvest losses. A lot of farmers are not able to dry their foodstuffs for us to be able to have readily available foodstuffs on the market, especially from the rural areas to the cities. Then we also have people obviously also hoarding food, okay? Then issues of taxation. And I'm very surprised why government is so adamant to these issues of taxation. Myself, peasant farmers, that's the Chamber of Agribusiness, peasant farmers, and crop life protection, we have done a lot of advocacy and engagement. And our expectations were that in this whole economic restructuring and also the fact that we are in an IMF process, government would have focused more in how to protect the food trade, the food production sector of the economy. And I think that some of these things are now affecting us, or the impact is going to be very hard on us. For instance, if you look at the World Economic Intelligence report, it says clearly that government political commitment towards food production is a major factor. So if you ask yourself, how much has government put directly into agriculture? And aside, our policies are not really aligned to our priorities. Okay, you know that we import over 1.2 billion of rice. We import over 1.3 billion of oil. We import over 1.6 billion of frozen chicken. We import almost $1 billion of frozen fish. Okay, we import over $600 million of tomatoes. We import more than $800 million of onion. Okay, the fruit juice, over 300 million. The list goes on and on and on and on, right? What is government deliberate attempt to mitigate some of these things? And besides, unemployment is going up. That is the reason why you are also seeing that the labor market gap being created. A lot of the rural folks who otherwise should be coming into the rural areas to involve themselves in the production are now in the cities. And if you look at our agriculture...
All right, Anthony, conclude your point for me in a minute.
Let me state this very important point.
All right, in a minute, please.
The National Agriculture Census have showed clearly that we have overage farmers in our census, and we also use rudimentary technologies. So if government is not making effort to bring in a lot of youth and invest into the industry, I can tell you, for the next 6 months, we are going to see a lot of food increase. Stability will come because of tomatoes. Now you are seeing the benefit of the short period that we've done production. Major season will come, but major season we've done limited because of the cost of fertilizers, inputs, and a lot of things that goes in.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time here on Business Life. Anthony Morrison is the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana, sharing his perspective with us on the back of the inflation, of course, what is happening in Niger, as well as Dr. Charles Nyaba, the Executive Secretary of the Peasant Farmers Association as well. We are grateful, gentlemen, for your time. You're still watching Business Life. We've got business fun for you after this break. And that's it for Business Life for today. I am Pius Kojobaka. I can get great stories when you log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Do enjoy the rest of our programs. Bye.